The green line on Mia's heart monitor went flat at the exact moment the word victory filled my tournament screen. For 1 second, both machines made noise. My headset exploded with cheers. The hospital monitor gave one long, steady scream. I had won enough money to save my sister. The payment was still frozen. On the wall-mounted television, Silas Voss smiled into a camera and told millions of viewers that fair play mattered more than speed. Behind him, my final match replayed in slow motion. My hands moved across the controller. My last enemy fell. The crowd rose. Mia did not move. A nurse pushed me aside and began pressing down on her chest. "Stay back," she said. I stayed because there was nowhere else to go.
Payment under review.
The tournament prize was mine. Voss's company had confirmed that much, but he had frozen the transfer after an unnamed sponsor claimed I might have cheated. I get sent every file they asked for, my game recordings, my computer logs, my camera feed, even the cracked controller I had used during the first rounds. The hospital had given me 2 hours. Voss took 11. The doctor shocked Mia's heart once, then twice. Her thin body lifted from the bed and dropped again. Her light brown hair spread across the pillow. The yellow hoodie she always wore during our old gaming nights was folded on the chair beside me. She had been too weak to wear it that morning. I stared at it while the doctor tried a third time. Nothing changed. At 2:17 in the morning, the doctor stopped. At 2:19, my phone vibrated.
Payment released.
I looked at the number for a long time. Then I picked up Mia's white controller from the chair and smashed my tournament monitor with my bare hand. Glass cut across my knuckles. The word victory broke into pieces. 6 months later, I still hated that word. I lived in a one-room apartment with no bed, one chair, and 3 locked boxes. One box held Mia's clothes. One held medical papers. The third held her controller, wrapped in the yellow hoodie. I slept on the floor beside it. The public story said I had won the tournament under suspicious conditions. Voss's company never called me a cheater. That would have allowed me to sue them. They only said the review had been necessary. Online, people did the rest. Some said I had made up Mia's condition for attention. Some said she had already been dead when I entered. Some said I had used her death to build my gaming name. I stopped reading after the funeral. I also stopped playing. Then someone pushed a black envelope under my door. There was no stamp and no return address. Only a silver crown pressed into the paper. Inside was a single card.
Crown City Challenge access. Player. Public rank. Unranked. General gamer. Available. Future stakes. Voss Medical Network. Voss Media. Voss Holdings. Entry price. Everything you have left.
I read the card twice. Then I turned it over. A final sentence ran across the bottom in smaller print.
District owners may challenge major holdings without sponsor approval.
For the first time since Mia died, I laughed. It did not sound healthy. Silas Voss had hidden behind contracts, screens, and smiling lawyers for 6 months. Now, someone had placed a path to him in my hand. The path looked unfair. That was fine. Games were always unfair before you understood what actually made you win. Crown City stood behind a wall of black glass and steel on the edge of the capital. Every building carried screens. Every screen showed rankings, odds, or smiling players holding giant checks. The city sold one idea better than anything else. Anyone could win. The line outside registration proved that almost nobody believed it. Most new players wore sponsor jackets. Some had trainers. Others had lawyers carrying metal cases full of challenge contracts. I had a black hoodie, $42, and Mia's controller inside my bag. People moved away from me when they recognized my face. A man in a white sponsor coat stepped into my path. "Eli Mercer," he said loudly. "The tournament ghost." Several phones turned toward us. He held out a bright red tablet. "We offer a welcome match for unranked players. 10,000 credits for one easy round." The prize number covered half the screen. Below it sat 14 pages of rules. The crowd began whispering. 10,000 credits was enough to enter most beginner games. "What happens if I lose?" I asked. The man smiled. "It is all in the contract. That is why I asked." His smile became thinner. The last sentence said that any player who lost surrendered all future entry rights to the sponsor for 5 years. The sponsor could rent those rights to other teams and keep most of the winnings. The visible prize was 10,000. The real stake was my future. Then I noticed the small blue box beneath the signature line. Crown City required public sponsors to state both sides of a welcome offer when asked directly. If the sponsor refused twice, The applicant could claim the advertised entry prize without accepting the hidden contract. It was not kindness. It was a rule written to make the trap look legal. The sponsor expected desperate players to sign before reading that far. I looked up. What happens if I lose? I asked again. His jaw tightened. That was not my question. People raised their phones higher. The tablet recorded his answer. A small counter changed from 1 to 2.
Disclosure requests ignored. 2. Claim advertised entry prize. Yes, no.
I tapped yes. The sponsor reached for the tablet. A woman beside him caught his wrist before he touched it. She had long black hair, deep red-brown eyes, and a fitted burgundy jacket over black challenge clothes. Her smile was warm. Her grip did not look warm. You should let him finish, she said. This is none of your business. She opened a small red notebook. It became my business when you tried to buy him.
Welcome prize transferred. 10,000 credits. Contract rejected.
The crowd went quiet. I had won my first Crown City game without entering the arena. The sponsor had shown me a large number, hidden the real loss, and assumed I would stop reading when I saw the prize. He had mistaken need for panic. That mistake cost him 10,000 credits. He pulled his wrist free and stared at the woman's notebook. Something in his expression changed. You cannot protect him from every sponsor in this city, he said. I do not need to, she replied. He appears capable of making them pay for the attempt. The man left, while the crowd laughed behind him. The woman watched him go and crossed out a line on one page. What was that? I asked. A temporary name. You had him written down before he spoke to me. That is a large category in this city. I brought extra pages. She closed the notebook. I decided not to ask the next question yet. At the registration desk, a clerk scanned my invitation. No sponsor, he said. No. No public specialty? No. No verified team? Not yet. He looked almost pleased. Then you cannot enter today's pair challenge. I pointed to the bottom of the display. An unranked player could register if another unranked player accepted shared risk. The clerk covered the line with his hand. That clause is rarely used. It is still there. Someone laughed behind me. The woman with the red notebook stepped forward and placed her wrist over the scanner. I accept shared risk. Her profile opened on the screen.
Cynthia Mia Flush.
I stopped breathing for half a second. Mia. The name sat between two others as if it had been waiting for me. The woman watched my face carefully. I know, she said softly. You know what? Why that name hurts. Every muscle in my body tightened. She did not move closer. She did not apologize. I followed the case, she said. The newspaper dates did not match Voss's public story. I came here 3 months ago to find out why. You knew I would come? You know it answer. No. Her smile returned, smaller this time. But you looked exactly like the kind of man who reads the final sentence. The clerk made an annoyed sound. Do you two want to register, or stare at each other until the building closes? Cynthia placed her hand on the shared risk box. I looked at her name one more time. Mia had always asked simple questions when I made plans too complicated. What actually makes us win? Right now, the answer was a partner. I put my hand beside Cynthia's.
Pair accepted.
Our first real-world game began in 12 minutes. The 40 rooms hotel had 40 rooms, 10 floors, and one useful rule. Hold the most room cards when 30 minutes ended. That was it. The announcer still spent 5 minutes making it sound complicated. 20 pairs stood inside the ruined lobby beneath a cracked gold chandelier. Some wore climbing gear. Some carried padded shields. One pair had matching silver jackets and a camera crew following them. Cynthia stood beside me with her hands in her pockets. Do you have a plan? She asked. Yes. That was fast. The rules are short. Across the lobby, a huge screen displayed the hotel map. 10 floors, 4 rooms on each floor, 1 card per room. The penthouse floor looked larger and brighter on the map. The announcer called it the crown floor 3 times. That was enough. Every strong team stared upward. I looked at the service stairs behind the kitchen. What are you seeing? Cynthia asked. They want us to fight over the penthouse. Because it looks important. Exactly. She followed my eyes to the side stairs. And? All cards are worth 1, her mouth curved. So the penthouse is 4 points. And 9 other floors are 36. A warning horn sounded. The front elevators opened. Most teams ran for them. 2 men shoved the smaller woman to the floor. A player in red armor kicked someone away from the first elevator and forced the door shut, with his whole team inside. The announcer laughed over the speakers. Player Null appears to be lost already. Grant Rook's face appeared on the broadcast screen above the lobby. He was not competing. He sat in a glass booth with his thick arms folded across black armor. Mercer was always better behind a screen, Grat said. Real games have weight. I pushed open the service door. The stairs beyond it were empty. Nice speech, Cynthia said. Should we wait for him to finish? No. We climbed to the second floor. The first room was unlocked. A white card waited on the bed. Cynthia took it. The second room had a simple number lock. A note beside it said the code was hidden somewhere in the room. I checked the television remote. 4 buttons had worn marks. 2619, I said. Cynthia collected the second card. Do you solve everything that quickly? No, some people hide things well. Do I? Yes, she looked pleased instead of offended. We cleared the second floor in less than 2 minutes. The scoreboard showed the top team with 3 cards. We had 4. The announcer stopped laughing. By the 4th floor, we had 12 cards. Fights thundered above us. Someone screamed near the elevators. A body hit a wall hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling. Nobody came down. They were all chasing the same 4 points.
No and flush. 12. Rook sponsored team. 7. Other teams. 0 to 5.
The hotel speakers came alive. Unexpected movement from the unranked pair. Grant, thoughts? Grant leaned toward his microphone. They are collecting beginner rooms. Let them enjoy it. Cynthia took a card from a bathroom mirror and held it toward the nearest camera. Thank you, she said sweetly. Grant's jaw tightened. On the 5th floor, we found our first real problem. A pair in blue sports gear stood across the service stair door. The taller man held 6 cards. His partner held a short steel baton that was not part of the approved equipment. The handle had been wrapped in black tape to hide its shine from the cameras. The tall man smiled. Hand over your cards. Cynthia moved half a step in front of me. I touched her elbow. The baton player laughed. You think this is a video game? No, I said. Video games usually warn you when someone brings illegal equipment. He rushed me. I did not retreat into the hall. I stepped through the fire door and held it open with my foot. The baton struck the metal frame where my head had been. The sound rang through the stairwell. I tossed one of our cards onto the floor behind me. The tall man saw it and crossed the doorway without thinking. People chased visible rewards. It did not matter whether the reward was useful. The moment both men stood on opposite sides of the fire door, I pulled the alarm. A bell exploded through the hotel. Red lights flashed. The elevators dropped toward the lobby. The tall man jumped back too late. The fire door slammed between him and his partner. One enemy became 2 separate problems. That was much easier. The baton player swung again. I fired a wall extinguisher into his face. White powder swallowed his head and shoulders. He cursed, stumbled, and attacked the shape he thought was me. His baton smashed through a glass wall panel. His arm followed. The broken glass cut 3 red lines across his forearm when he pulled free. He dropped the baton. Cynthia kicked it down the stairwell. I took the 6 cards from his stunned hand. On the other side of the fire door, his partner beat both fists against the steel. You planned that? Cynthia asked. I noticed the fire system when we entered. For anyone who thought blocking one stairwell meant owning the map, a thin piece of broken glass had scratched Cynthia's jacket, near her waist. The cup beneath it was shallow, but a line of blood touched the cloth. My eyes stayed on it for 1 second too long. I am fine, she said. I know. You do not sound convinced. I can be right and unhappy at the same time. Her expression softened. Good answer. The fire alarm changed the entire match. The teams in the penthouse had climbed as high as possible, because they thought height meant value. Now the elevators were locked at the lobby, and the fire doors split the upper floors into separate sections. The strongest teams had trapped themselves around 4 cards. Cynthia and I still had the service route. We cleared 2 more floors, while the announcer tried to explain how the unranked pair had taken the lead by 12 points. Grant Rook appeared on the broadcast screen again. This is a temporary advantage, he said. Mercer cannot control the whole hotel. I looked at the nearest camera. I do not need the whole hotel. The scoreboard showed us at 26 cards. The next team had 15. 2 minutes remained. Cynthia studied the numbers. We can stop. We could, but you will not. The reward grows if we win by 10 cards or more. That rule had been buried beneath the sponsor messages. A close win paid challenge credits. A win by 10 cards or more also paid to restore 1 property. Most players had ignored it, because they did not own property. Not yet, but Cynthia had come to Crown City for an arcade. The 9th floor service door had locked during fire mode. A clear emergency box beside it held a release key. The glass cover said, "Break only during a fire." The alarm was still screaming. I used the metal end of the extinguisher. The glass broke. I took the key and opened the door. No bloody hands, Cynthia said approvingly. I learned quickly. Room 35 held its card inside a metal box. 2 switches had to be pressed at once. Cynthia placed her hand on one. I covered the other. The box opened. I took the card with 28 seconds left. The top team finally broke through the penthouse fire door and ran toward room 40. They reached it as the timer hit 0. Every screen in the hotel changed.
First place, null and flush. Total cards, 27. Second place, Rook sponsored team. Total cards, 15. Dominance bonus. Active. Property restoration grant. Unlocked.
The fire doors opened. Players poured into the halls, bruised, breathless, and furious. Several had spent 30 minutes fighting over 4 penthouse rooms because the announcer had called them important. Grant's sponsored pair came down with blood on their silver jackets and 1 card between them. The announcer sounded almost offended. Player null, how did an unranked pair defeat 20 trained teams? I looked into the camera. They played for the room that looked best, I said. We played for the cards that counted. The crowd outside went silent for 1 beat. Then the roar struck the hotel like thunder.
30,000 challenge credits. 1 full property restoration package.
I had entered Crown City with $42. 1 game later, I had enough money to rebuild a home I did not own yet. Cynthia looked at the restoration package, then at me. You planned to win my arcade before I told you about it? No? Then why did you read the property reward? Because rewards are only useful when you know what they can become. Her red-brown eyes warmed. Behind Grant's viewing booth, a taller man stood in the dark glass. Silver hair, cold blue eyes, a charcoal suit that had appeared on every screen beside Mia's death. Silas Voss watched me without smiling. The hotel staff offered Cynthia a medical room. She refused until the prize transfer appeared in our accounts. Only then did she let me guide her into a small supply room and close the door. You already saw the victory screen, I said. So did you 6 months ago. The answer was gentle, not sharp. That made it hurt more. She understood why the word winner did not mean anything to me until the reward became real. The transfer completed. 30,000 credits, 1 restoration package, no review. No delay. Cynthia watched my shoulders loosen. There, she whispered. This victory arrived on time. I looked away before the words could reach too deeply. Her jacket had a narrow tear along the right side. The glass scratch beneath it was shallow, but blood had dried against the fabric. I opened the first aid box. Sit. She obeyed without teasing me. That worried me more than the blood. I cut the torn seam enough to reach the scratch. A black sports top covered her chest, but most of her side remained bare. My hands had been steady while an armed man attacked me. They became less reliable when Cynthia lifted her arms and watched my face. You are blushing, she said. I am checking the wound. With your entire face? The scratch needed cleaning and a narrow bandage. Nothing more. I finished quickly. Cynthia placed her hand over mine before I could step away. I followed Mia's case, she said. Not the comments, the dates. She opened the back cover of her red notebook. Folded newspaper pages filled a hidden pocket. Several dates were circled. Lines connected Voss Media, the hospital, the tournament office, and Grant Rook. The first article claimed the review began at 1 in the morning, she said. A later article claimed it began before midnight. Your final match ended at 12:43. Someone moved the review backward to make the delay look normal. Yes. Why did you spend months on this? Her fingers tightened around the notebook. My father lost the Flush Family Arcade in a Crown City game. The security feed vanished for 4 minutes. When it returned, his winning token had moved into another player's bag. Grant? He was still building his name, but yes, my father tried to prove it. Then he disappeared after a meeting with Voss Security. The calm in her voice was not weakness. It was a lid over something very deep. The arcade is being sold in the quiet auction tonight, she continued. I could enter, but Grant would drain my chips before the property round. You expected me to stop him. I hoped you would. That is not the same as trusting me. No. Her eyes dropped to the fresh bandage. Trust came when you saw blood on me and still kept thinking clearly enough to end the game. I closed the medical box. You were never in real danger after the fire door closed. I know. You sound pleased about that. I find competent obsession attractive. She said it as calmly as if she had commented on the weather. My brain needed a second to recover. Cynthia smiled. Then the corner of Mia's controller case showed through my half-open bag. Her expression changed at once. May I see it? She asked. No. Her fingers rested against the outside of the case for only a moment. I am sorry she is gone, she said. And I am sorry they made you believe you failed her. I looked at her. I was 2 minutes late. Cynthia's voice stayed soft. You arrived with the money. Voss held the door closed. Nobody had said it that way before. The room became quieter. Cynthia did not tell me to forgive myself. She did not tell me Mia would want me to move on. On Voss. We will win your arcade, I said. Her eyes brightened. You say that like the auction already ended. The rules are already written. It is close enough for you. The quiet auction took place in an old train hall with no trains. 20 tables stood beneath a giant clock. Each player received 5,000 bidding chips and a list of objects hidden inside glass cases. The win condition appeared on the main screen.
Collect 3 objects with the same mark. Unspent chips carry into the final property round.
The first half of the room cheered when the gold cases opened. A jeweled watch carried a gold lion mark. So did a silver sword and a small crown, once owned by some dead actor. Grant Rooks stood near the center table with 10 sponsored players around him. He had not entered as a player. He was listed as an auction backer, which meant he could give chips to anyone he wanted. Every gold object became expensive within seconds. The watch rose to 3,000 chips. The sword reached 4. The crown went above 5, and kept climbing because Grant added money to both sides of the bidding war. Cynthia leaned close to me. Her hair brushed my shoulder. What do you want? She whispered. The glass marble. Inside sat a cloudy blue marble, worth almost nothing. A small wave mark had been carved into its base. The spoon, I added. A bent metal spoon in another case carried the same blue wave. Then I pointed toward a faded hotel key with a blue wave on the tag. Cynthia's smile slowly widened. The rule says matching marks, she said. Not matching value. Gold is expensive because people want gold, and blue is useful because nobody does. I bid 50 chips on the marble. Nobody challenged me. I won it. The spoon cost 30. When I bid on the old key, Grant finally noticed. He stepped closer to the table. 3 pieces of trash, he said. A fitting collection. The auction host lifted his hand. Current bid, 40 chips. Grant nodded to one of his players. Cynthia glanced at me. I raised to 600. Grant's player said 1,000. The room began to watch. Grant thought he had found the object I needed. That was true. He also thought blocking it would make him win. That was not. I looked toward a 4th blue-marked object near the back wall, a cracked coffee mug. Cynthia saw it too. I raised the key to 1,200. Grant's player went to 2,000. I paused as if I had a difficult choice. Grant smiled. Run out of courage? No, I said. I ran out of interest. I lowered my hand. Grant's player won the key for 2,000 chips. The crowd laughed at me. While they watched my face, Cynthia walked to the back case and bid 20 chips on the mug. The host struck the table. Sold. Cynthia brought the mug to me. We placed it beside the marble and spoon. All 3 blue marks lit at once.
Match complete. First qualified team. Null and flush.
The laughter died. Grant looked from the key he had bought to our 3 cheap objects. You changed targets, he said. No, I replied. You bought the wrong one. The rules gave the first completed set a bonus of 2,000 chips. We had spent 100 chips on our set. Grant's side had spent more than 7,000 fighting over objects that no longer mattered. The final property round began. 3 deeds appeared on the screen. A warehouse, a closed restaurant, the Flush Family Arcade. Cynthia's fingers tightened around my arm. The opening bid for the arcade was 6,000 chips. We had just over 9,000 between our saved money, the bonus, and Cynthia's old deed claim. Grant still had sponsored funds, but most of his players had burned their personal chips during the first round. He could help only one bidder at a time. The warehouse opened first. Grant expected us to save everything for the arcade. So I bid on the warehouse. Cynthia looked at me, but she said nothing. Grant immediately backed another player against me. The warehouse rose from 4,000 to 7. I stopped. Grant's side won it. Then the restaurant opened. I bid again. Grant spent another large block of sponsorships to stop me. The restaurant sold to his team for almost twice its value. By the time the arcade appeared, Grant had only one small reserve left. The host opened bidding at 6,000. I raised my hand. 6,000. Grant answered with 6,500. Cynthia leaned over the table until her face was close to mine. You did know I wanted the arcade? Yes, I noticed. Good. I was deciding whether your name belonged in the notebook. How close was it? Uncomfortably. I raised to 7,000. Grant went to 75. I bid 8. He checked his tablet. His player shook his head. Grant had money outside the auction. That did not matter. The game allowed only registered chips. He had spent his power on the warehouse and restaurant because I had told him those mattered. Not with words, with my hand. He slammed his fist onto the table. 8,001, he said. The host checked his account. Invalid. Minimum rise is 100. Grant stared at the screen. The room laded. The host lifted the hammer. Flush Family Arcade. Sold to Eli Mercer and Cynthia Flush for 8,000 chips. The hammer fell. A transfer notice appeared on Cynthia's wrist display. For the first time since I met her, she lost control of her expression. Her lips parted, her eyes filled, but she refused to blink. I had expected her to celebrate. Instead, she grabbed the front of my hoodie and kissed my cheek hard enough to make the side of my face warm. Then she stepped back as if she had done nothing unusual. Temporary reward, she said. Grant turned away before the cameras could capture his full expression. The auction host opened the inspection reports for all 3 properties. The warehouse needed a new roof and carried 6 months of unpaid storage fees. The restaurant had a broken gas line, no kitchen license, and a basement full of water. Grant's players had not inspected either one. They had only seen me bid and assumed I wanted them. Their victory screens changed.
Mandatory repair cost, 18,400 credits. Mandatory repair cost, 11,200 credits.
The 2 sponsored players looked at Grant. He looked at me. You knew, he said. The warning marks were beside the property names. They were tiny. They were still there. A laugh began near the back of the hall and spread through the crowd. Grant had spent most of his auction power stopping me from buying 2 properties I never wanted. Now his own players had to pay to keep them. Cynthia leaned close to my ear. Did you bid only to make him buy the damage? I also wanted to see whether he would chase my hand instead of reading the screen. And he did it twice. Her cheek brushed mine as she pulled back. That was cruel. He can afford it. I meant to the buildings. She held the serious expression for 2 seconds before smiling. The arcade inspection report opened last. Its repair cost was higher than both other properties together.
Property restoration package applied. Owner repair cost, 0.
The crowd reacted louder than before. Grant had purchased 2 damaged properties at double price. We had purchased the 1 property we wanted and brought the exact reward needed to rebuild it for free. The hotel reward paid for the damage on the exact property we had just won. I looked at the deed on our screen. The arcade was damaged, nearly empty, and trapped inside Grant's district. It was also ours. More important, we still had enough money left to make it useful. The first cries had become the tool for the next game. That was how winning was supposed to work. The Flush Family Arcade looked dead from the street. Half the front sign had fallen away, leaving only family glowing above the door. 3 windows were covered with boards. The metal shutter stopped halfway down and screamed when Cynthia touched the switch. Inside, rows of dark machines waited beneath years of dust. A racing cabinet had no steering wheel. A dance machine leaned against a wall. The prize counter had been broken open and emptied. Cynthia walked to a faded height chart beside the counter. Several pencil marks ran up the wall. The highest one said, Cynthia, age 16. My father kept measuring me after I stopped growing, she said. Maybe he expected a hidden level. Her laugh was small, but it changed the whole room. The hotel game had given us more than money. The property restoration package included 1 repair crew for 24 hours, replacement glass, safe wiring, a legal terminal connection, and basic living rooms above the property. Most winners used it to improve apartments they already owned. We used it on a building everyone else thought was worthless. The crew arrived within an hour. I gave them a short list: a steel front shutter, 8 working cameras, emergency lights on a separate battery, hot water, a repaired kitchen, 2 secure rooms upstairs, power for 6 game machines. Cynthia read the list twice. No paint? Paint cannot stop Grant. No giant sign? The old one still says family. She looked up at the glowing word. That may be better. By sunset, the boards were gone from the windows. The new shutter closed without a sound. The legal terminal glowed behind the prize counter. 6 machines came alive, one after another. The first was an old fighting game. The second was a racing cabinet. The third was a crane machine, full of faded plush animals. Cynthia stared at the weak claw. You repaired that? People trust a game they think they can beat. The claw drops everything. Exactly. She wrote my name in the notebook for 7 seconds. Then the first child spent 12 credits trying to win a stuffed shark. The hotel victory had become windows, lights, beds, cameras, and an income stream before the day ended. That was the part most players missed. A reward was not the end of a game, it was the first item in the next one. The upstairs apartment smelled like clean wood and fresh wiring. It had 2 small bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen just large enough for 2 people to disagree inside it. I handed Cynthia the room with the old brass lock. "You take this one." She leaned against the frame. "You own half the building. So do you. You sleep badly. So do you." She stepped close enough to flatten the front of my hoodie with 1 finger. "Then perhaps locking both doors is inefficient." My mind stopped for 1 dangerous second. Cynthia smiled and took the key. We ate noodles at the prize counter, while people returned to the arcade. An old customer touched the restored fighting cabinet and began crying before the start screen finished loading. A mother showed her daughter the dance machine she had played as a teenager. Someone placed a photograph of Cynthia's father behind the counter. It smelled like noodles and warm wires. It felt like Cynthia's knee resting against mine beneath the counter. When the doors finally closed, we moved her newspaper clippings into the basement map room. I tried to work. The dates blurred. Victory screens still made my chest tighten. A payment could still disappear. A room could still go silent, while a smiling man explained why the delay had been necessary. Cynthia noticed before I said anything. She did not ask me to talk. She took Mia's yellow hoodie from the open controller box, only after I nodded. Then she folded it carefully and placed it beside me, on the old couch. "Lie down," she said. "I am not tired. You have been awake for almost 2 days. I am working." I looked at the paper. She was right. Cynthia sat at the far end of the couch and held out her hand. "I will stay until you sleep." "You do not have to." "I know." That answer removed the last reason to refuse. I lay down with Mia's hoodie beneath my head. Cynthia's fingers closed around mine. The last thing I saw was her red notebook open on her lap. The page held 3 names: Grant Rook, Silas Voss, and beneath them, in smaller writing, "Anyone who wakes Eli." I slept for 6 hours without dreaming. Cynthia did not erase the pain. She made it quiet enough for me to sleep. When I woke, sunlight crossed the basement evidence wall. A folded note rested on Mia's yellow hoodie.
You came back.
The words were written in Cynthia's neat handwriting. Below them, in smaller letters, she had added,
I checked. You are still here.
I found her upstairs making eggs in the restored kitchen. She wore one of my black shirts because her challenge clothes were still being cleaned. The shirt reached halfway down her thighs. The welcome contract prize had paid the arcade's first month of power and food. The hotel reward had rebuilt the walls around us. The auction had given those rewards somewhere permanent to live. 3 games, 3 parts of a home. Cynthia placed a plate in front of me. You slept, she said. You checked? Twice. That sounds less soothing when you admit it. I am learning how much honesty you can survive before breakfast. I looked toward the stairs. The machines below had already begun making their startup sounds. The building was waking around us. Cynthia sat across from me and pushed the red notebook aside. No names during breakfast? I asked. Only yours. The direct answer left me with nothing useful to say. She reached across the table and touched the scars on my knuckles from the night Mia died. I cannot make those disappear, she said, but I can make sure your next victory has someone waiting at home. The words were not a demand for trust, they were an offer of rest. I turned my hand beneath hers. Then we carried the coffee downstairs and returned to the evidence wall. Cynthia sat beside me with a fresh cup of coffee. I looked at the newspaper dates instead of her bare legs. She noticed. You are very focused, she said. The timeline matters. Of course. She handed me the coffee and leaned over the table close enough for her hair to brush my arm. The timeline mattered. I reminded myself of that more than once. 27 newspaper reports told the same public story. A cheating claim had appeared. Voss ordered a review. The payment was delayed. Mia died. The reports did not prove Voss planned it, but 8 separate cases showed the same kind of missing camera feed. Grant Rook appeared near all 8. Cynthia marked each shutdown. He does not need to cheat every game, she said. Only the ones he cannot control. Too many dates and names began to fill my head. I heard Mia's voice from years of gaming beside me. You are trying to win everything at once. Then came the question she always used when my plans became too large. What actually makes us win? I told Cynthia the last time Mia had asked it. Mia had been weak in the hospital. I had been checking sponsors, payment steps, and surgery forms. What actually makes us win, Eli? She whispered. The prize, I told her. She shook her head. You coming back. I had promised I would. Cynthia listened without interrupting. I came back with the prize, I said. It still was not enough. You came back, she replied. Voss made sure the prize did not. The answer did not erase the hospital room. It did something better. It kept the hospital room from swallowing everything after it. Cynthia touched the back of my hand. I cannot be Mia, she said. I will never ask you to make me into her. I know. But I can be the person you come back to now. Her voice remained calm. No demand, no test, no hidden rule. Just a place to return. I turned my hand beneath hers and linked our fingers. Then I looked at the evidence wall again. What actually makes us win? I asked. Crushing Voss. That is the final goal. What is the next one? Grant's district. The arcade terminal gave us limited access to local security logs. We searched the missing camera dates. The same approval code appeared beside every shutdown.
GRO1. Dot.
Grant, Rook. That was enough to challenge him if he made one more move against us. He made it 7 minutes after our protected day ended. The street power cut out. A chain struck the new French shutter. 6 masked men began pulling it upward with a motor winch. Cynthia closed her notebook. He is punctual. He has attacked 3 other properties within 10 minutes of protection ending. You expected this. I paid extra for the quiet shutter. She looked toward the front. The metal began to rise. A real security gate remained hidden 2 feet behind it. The raiders crawled under the first shutter and found themselves inside a narrow steel space between 2 doors. The outer shutter dropped behind them. The inner gate stayed closed. Cynthia stood beside me, behind a safe glass of the prize counter. The leader raised a hammer. This is private property, he shouted. Yes, I said. That is why you are being recorded from 8 angles. He looked at the cameras, then at the steel gates, then at the city security countdown on the wall. The hotel reward had paid for the trap. Grant had assumed it paid for decoration. The leader swung his hammer at the inner gate. The strike triggered the fire foam system. White foam blasted from the ceiling and covered all 6 raiders. One slipped and drove his face into the gate. His nose broke with a wet crack. Another dropped the heavy case he had brought for our legal terminal. It landed on his foot. He screamed and fell into the others. Cynthia watched them collapse into a white pile. I expected more violence, she said. They expected less reading. The leader tried to crawl toward the outer shutter. I pressed the intercom. Grant sent you to destroy the deed terminal. He said nothing. The security countdown reached 30 seconds. Grant said city cameras would stay dark, one of the younger men blurted. The leader turned toward him. Cynthia opened her notebook. Please continue. He paid us through Rook Security. We were supposed to break the terminal and leave through the rear alley. There is no open rear alley, I said. They all looked toward the building map painted on the wall. The rear exit shown there had been sealed years ago. Grant had used an old floor plan. That was the second mistake. City security arrived as the inner gate opened. They found 6 trapped raiders, illegal tools, a recorded confession, and a payment device carrying Grant's company mark. Crown City made whoever ordered an illegal raid pay 3 times the damage. They also lost the money they had locked away for local challenges. Grant had tried to destroy our base. Instead, his money bought us a backup generator, a second steel gate, 12 more cameras, and a new broadcast room. By noon, the arcade was stronger than it had been before the attack. The raid had become another base upgrade. Grant sent his official challenge before the security officers finished removing the foam from his men. He had finally brought us the district. Every screen in the arcade turned red.
District Board Offer. Challenger. Grant Rook. Opponent. Eli Mercer and Cynthia Flush. Grant's stake. Ownership of Arcade District 7. Eli's stake. Flush Family Arcade.
The map opened beneath the contract. 9 city blocks, 5 flag towers, 1 headquarters on each side. The main rule filled the screen.
First team to hold 5 flags wins.
Grant's roster contained 30 players. Our side contained 2. A 10-minute timer began. Cynthia read the contract once. He wants us to stare at the flags. Yes. I scrolled to the final page.
Capture of enemy headquarters ends the match immediately.
There it was. 5 visible objectives and 1 real objective. Cynthia looked from Grant's transit station headquarters to the maintenance tunnels beneath the district. He will guard it. with the people he does not send to the flags. How many? 4, maybe 5. He has 30. He also wants the crowd to watch him win 5 places at once. The timer reached 7 minutes. If we lose, he takes the arcade, Cynthia said. We will not. She studied my face. There was no fear in me. Only the clean feeling that came when an opponent had already shown his whole plan. Cynthia placed her hand over mine. Then accept before I become impatient. We pressed the screen together. Thousands of people filled the streets behind safety walls. Drones floated above the district. 5 gray flags appeared on every public screen. Grant stood at the center tower in black armor, with 30 players behind him. Cynthia and I waited inside our tiny headquarters. The old arcade customer who had cried over the fighting cabinet stood by the door. He had volunteered for one simple job. If anyone asks, I told him, say we are defending the West flag. But you are not. That is why they will believe it. The horn sounded. Grant divided his team exactly as expected. 4 players rushed each flag. 4 guards stayed at headquarters. 2 fast runners remained near Grant, and 4 more players moved as his reserve. Cynthia and I ran west in full view of the cameras. The announcers reacted at once. Mercer is trying to hold 1 flag with 2 players. Grant will take the other 4 without resistance. The first flag turned red, then the second, then the third.
Grant Rook, 3. Eli Mercer, 0.
People shouted for us to turn back. Some laughed. Cynthia glanced at the nearest camera. They are enjoying this. They think the score is the game. We reached the west block and disappeared behind a delivery wall. Grant's 4-person flag team closed from the front. Cynthia lifted a public radio. Eli, the south maintenance door is chained, she said loudly. We cannot reach the tunnel. One of Grant's players touched his earpiece. 2 ran south to block a route we had never planned to use. Cynthia released the button. They believed me. Your disappointed voice is convincing. I was thinking about what happens if Grant survives long enough to see Voss fall. We entered the north service hatch through a laundry shop. The tunnel beneath it smelled like rust and rainwater. Old blue signs pointed toward the transit station. Grant captured his 4th flag above us. The city screens turned almost completely red.
Grant Rook, 4. Eli Mercer, 1 flag from victory.
Grant raised both arms to the crowd. His players celebrated. That was the danger of a visible lead. It felt like a win before the game had ended. The first tunnel gate was wrapped in a fresh chain. Grant had altered the route after the contract locked. Cynthia looked at me. You expected 1 closed path. He controls the district. Leaving every route open would have been strange. I opened a maintenance panel beside the gate. The hotel room locks had taught me Crown City used the same emergency key shape across older buildings. I had kept the key from room 35. It opened the side service door. Cynthia stared at it. You kept a hotel key? It became useful. You would loot the furniture if I let you. Only the important furniture. We crossed a parking garage and entered an office block above the transit station. 2 of Grant's players waited there because they had finally realized the South message was false. The first man swung a padded staff. I stepped behind a parked delivery cart. The staff struck metal. Cynthia kicked the cart's brake release. It rolled down the slight garage slope and forced both players apart. I moved through the gap, pulled the fire door, and locked it with the same hotel key. The 2 men remained on the wrong side. We had not come to defeat them. We had come to pass them. Above us, Grant's last flag team began its capture.
10%. 20. 30.
Cynthia pressed the radio again. West flag lost. All remaining support returned to our headquarters. Grant heard the word headquarters and made the choice I had built the whole route around. He assumed we meant ours. He pulled his 2 fast runners away from the final flag and sent them toward the arcade. The capture bar slowed. His strongest reserve moved 3 blocks farther from the place that actually mattered. We reached the transit station from the roof bridge. 4 guards surrounded Grant's headquarters terminal inside a glass office above the platforms. 30 players had become 4 because everyone else was busy winning the wrong objectives. The first guard rushed onto the maintenance bridge. I backed away and let him chase. Cynthia pulled the bridge's side pin. The guard grabbed it with both hands and dropped his staff to keep from falling. The second guard stopped to pull him up. 1 pin removed 2 players. The third guard blocked the office door. Cynthia threw the dropped staff over his shoulder. His eyes followed it. I hit the sliding door release. The glass panel struck him from the side and pushed him into the wall. The final guard held a shock baton beside the terminal. I pressed the station warning horn. The blast made him flinch and cover one ear. Cynthia kicked the baton from his hand.
1.
The guard lunged. Cynthia trapped his arm behind his back.
2.
Boots thundered on the stairs below.
3.
Grant Rook burst through the glass door alone. He had abandoned his runners and used a private motorcycle route. A real knife filled his right hand.
4.
I removed my palm before he reached me. The capture reset. The whole city groaned. Grant smiled because he thought he had stopped the trick. He pointed the knife at me. You almost stole my district with one forgotten rule. Not forgotten, I said. Ignored. You cannot touch that panel for 5 seconds while I am standing here. That is true. His smile widened. It should not have. The knife was not a surprise. Cynthia's clippings contained 12 public fights involving Grant. In every one, he reached for a weapon with his right hand when someone made him feel small. I had not entered the office to capture the terminal before he arrived. I had entered early enough to make sure he came alone. Grant stepped closer. You think reading rules makes you strong? I looked past him toward the bridge. I think reading you makes this easy. Then I ran away from the terminal. Grant followed exactly as planned. We stepped onto the maintenance bridge. Cynthia remained beside the office control panel. Grant swung the knife. I stayed outside its reach and gave him the one thing he could never ignore. A calm smile. You captured 4 flags, I said. Thank you. His face twisted. Every heavy charge began the same way. Right foot back, shoulder low, whole body forward. He had repeated it in 12 fights. He repeated it for the 13th. I stepped aside and pulled the second maintenance pin. The center section of the bridge folded down. Grant charged into empty space. He caught the rail with one arm, but his leg struck the steel beam below. The bone broke with a deep crack. His knife spun onto the platform. Grant screamed. His right leg hung at the wrong angle beneath the knee. I caught the back of his armor and pulled him onto the safe side. He stared at me in shock. You saved me. No, I said. I kept you alive long enough to watch the transfer. Cynthia had already locked the office door. Grant's returning players struck the glass from outside. I walked to the terminal and placed my palm against it.
1.
A staff hit the door.
2.
Grant dragged himself toward me.
3.
Cynthia stepped between us and opened her notebook. Grant stopped.
4.
Every red flag still glowed across the city.
5.
The terminal flashed blue.
Headquarters captured. Match ended.
All 5 flag towers went dark. Grant's 30 players froze in the streets. The screens changed.
Winner: Eli Mercer and Cynthia Flush. District ownership transfer in progress.
For 3 seconds, Crown City made no sound. Then, the entire district exploded with noise. Grant lay beside 4 red flags on the scoreboard and stared at the blue transfer screen. But I had 4, he whispered. I looked down at him. And I had the game. The district transfer completed while Grant was still on the bridge. Every public terminal changed from red to blue.
Arcade District 7. Owner: Eli Mercer. Co-owner: Cynthia Mia Flush.
Grant kept staring at the words, as if the screen might become embarrassed and change back. It did not. City medics secured his broken leg. Security officers collected the illegal knife. The raid confession and his weapon violation froze every company account connected to Rook Security. Grant had entered the game with a district, 30 players, guards, money, and complete control of the map. He left on a stretcher while the crowd chanted my name. No, no, no. The name used to mean I was 1 match away from saving Mia. Now it meant Silas Voss could no longer hide behind Grant. A Voss media host appeared on the station screens. An unusual ending, she said. Some viewers are calling Mercer's victory a lucky use of an old rule. Cynthia opened her notebook. Temporary? A reporter pushed through the crowd and raised a microphone. Eli, Grant controlled 4 of the 5 flags. Was the headquarters attack a desperate gamble? I looked at the final map. 30 red players had been spread across 5 towers. 2 blue players stood inside the red headquarters. Grant needed 5 flags or my headquarters, I said. I needed 5 flags or his headquarters. He sent everyone to the flags. I took the thing he left empty. The reporter waited for a longer answer. There was none. The crowd looked at the map again. The victory stopped appearing lucky. It became simple. That was worse for Voss. Silas Voss replaced the host on every screen. Silver hair, cold blue eyes, the same calm face that had explained why Mia's payment needed more time. Crown City rewards bold play, he said. Mr. Mercer has shown that even an unranked competitor may succeed when fortune offers the right opening. Fortune, he needed the city to believe I had stumbled into Grant's headquarters. Because if I had planned it, then every weak point in Voss's empire had become dangerous. Voss looked directly into the camera. I look forward to seeing whether he can repeat such fortune on a greater stage. I stepped closer to the screen. I am not coming for one hospital bill, I said. I am coming for every building, company, and screen carrying your name. The station went silent. Voss's smile remained in place. His eyes did not. I want you alive when I take them, I continued. I want you to see where each piece goes. Cynthia closed her notebook. That was romantic. It was directed at Voss. I know. I liked the part where you promised to keep him alive. We returned to the arcade after dark. The district victory had already begun upgrading our home. The challenge bond from Grant's illegal raid paid for a backup generator and the second security gate. District revenue restored the full Flush Family Arcade sign. The empty room beside the basement became a broadcast studio. The kitchen received new equipment. 12 new machines stood in the delivery lane, waiting to be installed. Every game had changed the building. The hotel gave us the money and repair package. The auction gave us the arcade. Grant's raid gave us hardened security. The old customer handed Cynthia the original brass office key her father had left behind. She held it against her chest. People filled the arcade until midnight. Children played beneath the restored sign. Adults brought photographs from the years before Grant took the property. Someone placed flowers beside the picture of Cynthia's father. The broken arcade no longer looked repaired. It looked alive. After the doors closed, Cynthia and I entered the new basement control room. District owner access opened dozens of local camera records. Grant's approval code appeared beside the missing feeds from her father's final game.
GR01.
The hospital loading entrance from the night Mia died carried the same code. Above it sat a higher approval line.
Voss Security Executive Access.
The actual video had been deleted. The order remained. It was not enough to crush Voss yet. It proved Voss had touched both of our tragedies. A new window opened on the district terminal.
Grand Circuit Invitation. Entry requirement. District Owner. Status. Met. Available final stake. Voss Holdings.
A small gold signature appeared at the bottom.
Lucian Crown. Chairman, Crown Board.
I stored the name. The invitation gave us 72 hours to accept. Cynthia touched Voss Holdings on the screen. Everything? She asked. His tournament company, arenas, hospital network and tower. His name rights? I opened the property list. Yes. Her smile became soft and deeply pleased. I would enjoy watching him lose permission to use his own name. We climbed to the apartment after the last machine went quiet. Cynthia made tea while I placed Mia's controller case on the kitchen table. I opened it without being asked. The white controller rested inside the yellow hoodie. Cynthia sat beside me. She did not touch either one. The first victory screen came too late. Yes. Today I kept waiting for something to disappear. The arcade, the transfer, you. I know. But nothing did. You were not too late today. The words struck the place inside me that had remained frozen beside Mia's hospital bed. Cynthia moved closer. I am not a replacement, she said. I am not a second chance to save your sister. I know. Protecting you will never replace Mia. It gives me someone alive to come home to. Cynthia's eyes softened. I am the woman who wants to stay beside you while you destroy the man who hurt her. Her red-brown eyes held mine. And when the games end, I want to be the place you come back to. I looked at her full name written on the invitation screen of her wrist display. Cynthia Mia Flush. There was no magic in the world. Mia had not sent her. Sometimes, they were simply the moment a broken person decided not to ignore an open door. I touched Cynthia's cheek. I want to come back to you, I said. For the first time since we met, her dangerous confidence vanished. She looked almost surprised. Then, she leaned into my hand. I should warn you, she whispered. My affection is permanent, intense, and very poorly supervised. I noticed the notebook. The notebook is the supervised part. I laughed. A real laugh. Then I leaned forward slowly enough for her to choose. Cynthia closed the distance. Her lips were warm and careful against mine. Nothing in the kiss felt rushed. Nothing felt borrowed from the dead. When we separated, she rested her forehead against mine. You are under permanent protection now, she said. No. He is under permanent observation. The district terminal chimed downstairs. The Grand Circuit invitation waited. Silas Voss had money, specialists, guards, and control of the public story. I had no rank, no sponsor, and no supernatural power. I had a lifetime of games, a district, an arcade that grew with every victory, and a woman whose name felt like an answer to a question I had been afraid to ask. For the first time since Mia died, victory no longer sounded like a machine screaming beside a hospital bed. It sounded like Cynthia breathing beside me. We carried the tea downstairs and opened the invitation on the arcade's main screen. The repaired machines glowed around us. Behind a screen, the district map had turned completely blue. Cynthia placed her finger beside mine. We pressed accept together. Voss Spire appeared above the map. At the top, one sentence waited.
Take everything or lose everything.
I read the final page of the entry contract. Voss had chosen every major rule himself. That meant every weakness inside them belonged to him. I found the first one before the tea went cold. Cynthia took my hand. I looked at Voss's name. Now we take the player who thought he owned the game.